Anyone want shimmery eyeballs? I would like to thrive. As you can see, I am a ghost. The best way to respond is just to be kind to yourself. Hi guys. Happy Monday, welcome back to my channel. It's the Monday before Thanksgiving when this video is coming out, and so I wanted to talk today a little bit about some food anxiety that comes up for a lot of us around the holidays, especially Thanksgiving. I think can be really triggering when it comes to food anxiety, and just, it can sometimes be really difficult to navigate. So I'm here today to talk about some tips to help you navigate that food anxiety at Thanksgiving, at the holidays in general, or really anytime that you're noticing anxiety come up around food. And today, I'm also pretending to be a beauty YouTuber because I've been watching a ton of makeup and beauty YouTube videos lately. It's been making me feel very calm and relaxed during quarantine. I love makeup, and so I thought that I'd put on some new eyeshadow while I talk about nutrition today. So that's what we're up to. Before we get started, if you're new here, go ahead and hit subscribe down below because that really supports my channel. And let's jump in.
I've been strictly counting macros for the last month. I'm worried if I do Thanksgiving how I normally would, it'll throw me off. What should I do?
The very first tip that I have when it comes to navigating and managing Thanksgiving food anxiety is to go in with a plan. So I'm gonna elaborate on that in just a second, but let me introduce my eyeshadow palette. This is the Too Faced Born This Way Natural Nudes eyeshadow palette. It's new to me. Here's the inside. It has a beautiful mirror, beautiful palette, very exciting. I'm gonna go for like a Thanksgiving warm autumnal sort of eye look. Go in with a plan. And by that I mean, know whether or not you're going to stick to whatever you do in your normal life on that day. So this applies if you are someone who tracks macros, if you're on a keto diet, or if you are gluten-free, or really if you're following any sort of dieting strategy in your everyday life. Decide if you're going to practice that on Thanksgiving also. And with this one, I do not think that there is a right or wrong answer. I think that it is absolutely valid to say, like, you know what? This is whatever dieting strategy or thing I normally do in my regular life. I do it for a reason and it works for me and I feel comfortable and confident sticking to that on Thanksgiving. Great, especially if you're like, that will trigger less anxiety for me than if I just don't have a structure. Also though, I think that it's totally valid to just be like, no, I'm gonna indulge for this day, for this meal. I'm gonna enjoy this holiday and just kind of do whatever I want. I just think that having a plan will help you to mitigate some anxiety that might come up. Maybe some feelings of like you've fallen off the wagon or that you slipped up, or, you know, things like that that can come up when you don't go in having a plan can be managed when you have a plan. So that is tip number one. So I'm going in now with the shade called Maple, which is a little bit of a darker matte brown. And I'm just gonna kind of add this to what I've already put on and sort of blend these two shades together and deepen this sort of base. And also, just so you know, in case you're wondering, what I have on my face right now is the Tarte Cosmetics Amazonian Clay foundation. And I use the shade called Porcelain Beige because, as you can see, I am a ghost. And then for my blush, I have on the NARS Orgasm blush. And for my highlighter, I have a Tarte Cosmetics highlighter in the shade Exposed. It smells like cake. It's incredible. It makes your whole face just smell. It's not like perfumey or like overly fragranted, overly scented, but it is just like a really nice cake sort of smell. I love it.
I've decided I'm not restricting any foods this year, but I still don't want to feel awful at the end of the meal. Any tips?
Okay, so tip number 2 is build a balanced plate. This is a tip that applies to nutrition in general on any day of the week, but you know, it's always a good reminder to think about on Thanksgiving. What I mean by build a balanced plate is look for 50% of your plate to be filled up with fruits and veggies, 25% with lean protein, and 25% with starchy carbs. And then sprinkle some fat in there too. On Thanksgiving, this might be a little bit extreme, but if we take this rule and sort of modify it for a Thanksgiving situation. Maybe think about getting your first plate, your first helping, and filling up on high fiber fruits and veggies and lean protein. So these are things that are gonna make you feel full a little bit faster and maybe prevent you from overindulging later on. I think that checking in with sort of that visual of what your plate actually looks like can be really helpful, especially if you are trying to eat a little more intuitively on Thanksgiving. This can be a really helpful sort of guideline. This is something that also might help you to not feel sick at the end of the meal. I think that so many people end up feeling sick at the end of Thanksgiving. And I don't think that that's necessary. And I think that you can enjoy and indulge and have a lovely, lovely time and eat whatever you want without having to feel sick. For me, this is something that's so important in my daily life. I try to be really mindful of how food makes me feel. I think that is the most effective way to manage eating, really. You know, it's more than any dieting strategy or anything else that exists. How do you feel? Check in with how you feel regularly, because this will inform your decisions moving forward. So now, I forgot to let you know, I'm going in with a shade called Sugared Chestnut. And I'm just sort of using this larger blending brush to give a little more drama on the outer corners here with this eyeshadow. And while I'm doing this, let's talk about nutrition swaps.
It's not safe for me to travel home, so I'm doing my own cooking this Thanksgiving. I want to keep the dishes I love, but with a little more nutrition. What's the best way?
This is something, if you are cooking at home and if you have a little bit of control over the recipes you're using and what's going into your food this year, look for little nutrition swaps and substitutions that you can make in whatever recipe you're using. So maybe instead of using butter, you can try coconut oil or olive oil. Or instead of cane sugar, you could use maple syrup or honey. So looking for sort of those natural, more nutritionally valuable substitutions can go a long way, and honestly probably won't change the ultimate taste too much of the recipe. Even if it's a traditional family recipe, you know, there's always something that you can kind of tweak just to make it maybe a little bit more in line with your health goals, whatever they may be. I have now the shade called Sparkling Sable, and I'm going to fill out some brown. Just really get that nice, dramatic, sort of smoked out effect. That's what I'm going for anyway. We'll see if it happens. I will say on camera, this is looking more orange than it's looking just in person, but I don't hate it. Here's something to keep in mind, you guys, too. I wouldn't necessarily call this like a tip, but it's just something to think about. One of my clients pointed out to me that she's been seeing a lot of content that says like tips to survive Thanksgiving and ways to survive the Thanksgiving dinner and meal and family and all of that. And I would like to encourage you to not only survive, but also enjoy, you know? This ultimately is a day about being grateful and thankful for what you have. So taking a step back and remembering to broaden your perspective, I think can be really helpful when navigating food anxiety. And I don't know about you, but I never want to just survive. I would like to thrive and enjoy. I just wanted to kind of touch on that and say that because I think that it's really important to distinguish between survival tactics when it comes to eating and enjoying. You know, I've gone back in with this bigger blending brush now, and I am just sort of blurring everything out. What's the word I'm looking for? Blending? Blurring? Yeah, blending. Blending all these shades together before I go in and fill in sort of the inner part of my eye. If this video is chaotic and all over the place, I apologize. I'd like to keep doing this on my channel. I think it's fun to incorporate makeup with talking about nutrition to keep it a little sexier. But hopefully I will get better at the sort of multitasking of doing the makeup and talking about nutrition as I continue doing this on my channel. So please stay tuned. Time to add a little bit of sparkle to this look. So I'm going in with this shade here called Golden Light. It's this really shimmery. It looks orange in the camera, but in real life it's more gold. So I'm gonna put this just right in the middle of my eyelid. Anyone want shimmery eyeballs?
I love pumpkin pie so much that I find it tough to stop eating it. This is the only time of the year that I have it, but is there anything I can do to enjoy it in moderation?
Here's another tip. Remember that this is very likely not the last time that you will have access to these specific foods. I think it's really easy to get into the mindset of like, oh God, this brush already had a different shade on it. That was a mistake. Okay, I'm gonna use a different brush and try to fix this. As I'm doing that, sorry guys. What I was saying, this is very likely not the last time that you'll have access to these specific foods. And I think that it's really easy to think like, oh, this is the one time of the year that I get to have pumpkin pie, so I'm gonna eat the whole pie, or I'm gonna eat way more than is comfortable because I won't get to have it again for another year. And the reality is, you can have these foods anytime you want. You can make pumpkin pie, you can buy pumpkin pie, or any recipe, any Thanksgiving food or holiday food. And thinking of it as the last opportunity that you'll ever have to eat this food, at least for me, it really makes me want to just eat all of it now because I don't think I'm ever gonna get to have it again. And that's not true. So it can be helpful to just remind yourself like, oh, you know what? I could have this again tomorrow if I wanted to, and it would be okay. And by the way, I also want to be very clear that overindulging is different than indulging. What I mean by overindulging, at least for my definition for this video, for this purpose right now, is eating to a point where you are feeling sick or to a point that's uncomfortable. That's what I mean by overindulging.
I feel so much anxiety around big celebratory meals. What do you suggest so I can eat how I want to without getting derailed by all my feelings about the food itself?
I have one last tip. Keep in mind that this is one day. One day will not derail any progress that you've made. One day will not change the way you feel, the way you look, your relationship with food down the road. So remember not to give this one day too much power in the long run. What we do on most days is what counts. If any feelings of guilt or shame or anxiety start to come up after the meal, if you feel bad for eating a certain food or anything like that, the best way to respond is just to be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself, treat yourself the way that you would treat a best friend. Try to notice and acknowledge any negative self-talk that's coming up and then let it go, because ultimately tomorrow's a new day, and spiraling into sort of like a shame spiral or anything like that ultimately is going to be more harmful than helpful. So as much as you can, treat yourself with kindness, speak to yourself with kindness, absolutely always when it comes to food. The last step with this makeup that I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use this smaller angled brush to do some eyeliner just with the eyeshadow. So I'm gonna use the darkest matte brown shade in this palette, which is called Truffle. And I'll show you the end result after I throw on some mascara too. Okay guys, this is the finished look. I did put on a little bit of lipstick. Here's a close-up. This is what all the beauty YouTubers do. They're like, here's my eyes, and look at my beautiful skin. I hope this video was helpful. I hope that some of these tips will help you to navigate some anxiety if it does come up during Thanksgiving or the holiday season this year. If you like videos like this, if you like this style with makeup and nutrition, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe below, and also to have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you next time. Bye.